Candyman, the original 1992 slasher film starring Virginia Madsen and Tony Todd, based on a short story by Clive Barker. There is a direct sequel to the film coming out just now in theaters, and I figured this was a good time to get myself familiar with the original, which I haven't seen so far, and I have to say it was well worth my time. The story follows Helen Lyle, a graduate student at Chicago's University of Illinois. As part of her thesis, she is researching urban legends and myths and stumbles upon the story of Candyman. Apparently, it's a vicious ghost or demon with a hook for an arm, and he can be summoned by looking into the mirror and saying his name 5 times in succession. He then comes from the darkness and kills you. The legend is well alive, especially in the black community from the project, the notorious Cabrini Green neighborhood, historically like a real thing in the world, not just made up for the film, historically riddled with violence, crime and poverty. Helen ends up venturing there herself and saying Candyman's name in the mirror herself, which of course ends up bringing the demon to haunt her. So I think it's a brilliant movie through and through, and it does quite a lot with very little in terms of resources. And the amazing thing about it is how it modernizes the horror trope of folktale demons. Traditionally, I mean, when you think about it, we feared witches living in the woods, monsters from caves and lakes, spirits of the forest, and so on. This one moves the unknown into the known, into the city, into the run-down poor communities. And by doing so, I think it was also ahead of its time in terms of social commentary. I think it offers an interesting look into the economic struggles of America, which of course somewhat line up with race issues. I think it's also super interesting to have Candyman be a black person and more directly the son of a slave. At the time of the movie's release, that generated some controversy that, you know, making a black villain is a poor attempt at abusing the fears of middle class white America and so on. I think that's a complete misunderstanding of the film, first of all. And secondly, I mean, if you want to get rid of racism and fight for equal treatment, then it stands to reason that black actors can play protagonists and heroes in movies, but they can also play villains, right? I mean, if you read the movie as an implication that because this one demon is a black guy, then all black people are villains, then you're the racist one in this equation. Anyway, ranting a little bit. In any case, I found the movie to be a really interesting mix of social commentary, of real social commentary, and supernatural horror, where both aspects work really well. I think the performances are very good. I like the cinematography and editing, especially with the often single frame subliminal images repeatedly spliced in particularly in the camera flash effect. The movie's opening features a revolutionary at the time overhead shot of Chicago. There's also a brilliant haunting score by Philip Glass. There's a fair bit of gory violence where needed, but there's also psychological horror to complement it. All in all, it really is a fantastic slasher film that I think is somewhat forgotten in the general consciousness, especially outside of the US. I mean, here in Poland, everybody knows Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, or Halloween, but Candyman is often omitted from that, Hall of Fame, which is a shame because it definitely deserves its spot there.